and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Everybody, and welcome to Gay USA. I'm Ann Northrup.
And I'm J.W. Walker.
Not Andy Hum, who is away for a few weeks, which, as my tenure comes to an end soon at the end of the month, but it gives me the chance to visit with several of our favorite substitute co-hosts, starting with you.
Oh, I'm so honored and pleased to be here.
Next week, Chris Cooper, and then Kathy Marino-Thomas, and then Andy's back for our last show together at the end of the month.
Chris Cooper's my secret crush.
You're not alone in that. I hear that all the time from people. Oh, where's that Chris Cooper? But I have to start again with a medical update. No, nothing bad, but I got a call from a friend this week saying, what's up? I went to this little 4th of July event, and I was talking to this guy, and he said something about ACT UP, and I asked him if he knew you, and he said, oh, did you hear what happened to her? And she said, no, what? And he said, she had a recurrence of her breast cancer. And the answer is no, I did not. There was a little scare a couple of weeks ago when they found a new mass, but it just turned out to be, as we like to say, a ball of fat. So please, if you think anyone is deceived, correct them. I'm fine. I, in fact, have gone back to my cured status, which is what the oncologist says. Excellent. So please stop any rumors to the contrary. I'm fine, because I would hate to have people running around thinking that I had a recurrence when I did not. So J.W. Walker is here. He's the co-founder of the Queer Liberation March.
With this one.
True. And co-founder of Gays Against Guns, which was Grand Marshal at this year's Pride Parade.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, tell me. So how was it?
Well, the interesting thing is that Queer Liberation March was started as a very oppositional to NYC Pride, to Heritage of Pride. But
yes.
The reality is that over the last several years, there's been a lot of changes at Heritage of Pride, and
mostly because the corporations pulled out.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
But when this year is Gays Against Guns' 10th anniversary. We were founded. A couple days after the Pulse nightclub shooting, which was June 12th, 2016, and we made our first public debut at that Pride March that year. And so it felt really important for us to participate in the Heritage of Pride March this year. Yeah,
I was there. That was a very moving thing that first year.
And so we reached out to them just about figuring out a way that we could participate. And as it turned out, one of their board members had already nominated us to be Grand Marshals. So everything just sort of dovetailed. And
very nice.
And all the other Grand Marshals were lovely. And the folks at NYC Pride could not have been kinder and sweeter. I got to represent Gays Against Guns, painting the rainbow crosswalk at Christopher Street and 7th Avenue. I broke my paint roller stick while I was doing it.
And you did a die-in in front of the.
Well, and then on the day of the march, yes, we did a die-in in front of Stonewall, on the block in front of Stonewall. So, which is holding back to our activist roots, our disruptive roots. The marshals of the parade were not too thrilled with us for doing that diet.
They never are, which is why there will not be a full rapprochement in the foreseeable future.
And then, of course, right after we finished, I had to go hop on the L train to go across 14th Street to go to Union Square to start the Queer Liberation March.
And how did that go this year?
That was really powerful and wonderful. And there was, yet again, a situation with community affairs cops near the very end. But overall, it was a really positive march.
Okay. I'll talk to you more about that another time.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into the headlines here. Because, per usual, there's a lot going on. ICE arrests are surging. You don't hear about it as much, but they're doubling.
They're doubling, yeah.
Intelligence officers are being fired by the bozo who's currently running, is the director of national intelligence. The civil service is being destroyed after the Supreme Court decision. And Trump's campaign to devastate the United States he's even come close to destroying the World Cup.
Yeah.
But it's all in high gear.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it's going to stop. There was just another ICE murder of, he was apparently a Mexican national, Lorenzo Salgado Araujo in Houston, Texas.
Yes, I just read that.
And you know, with this surge, of course, there are going to be more deaths, and some of those deaths are going to be American citizens.
Exactly.
And it's just going to get worse.
So, next headline.
We got, what Trump has been doing across the board since his first month in office is targeting trans people for attack and erasure. That's at the heart of his strategy to divide the country and to distract people into focusing on some boogie people while he's robbing everyone blind.
And lying, of course, about all of this. And you've unearthed an interesting new report about how this is the strategy being picked up around the world. We'll talk about that. Patriot Front troops were marching through Washington, D.C. on the 4th of July. Mm-hmm. There they were in their khakis and their Navy shirts and their face masks. Mm-hmm. It's just unbelievable.
Well, and, you know, they just, I think it was last January, received a judgment against them to the tune of $2.7 million in a federal court because an earlier one of these Patriot Front marches back in 2022 in Boston, they attacked a black musician, Charles Morrell III, and brutalized him.
Save it. We're just doing the headlines at the moment. All right.
All right. So the resistance, the resistance is alive and well.
Yes.
And growing.
Yes.
Which is great.
Because they're all so obvious. And believe it or not, the Daughters of the American Revolution have affirmed their trans members. This is... I just heard an exclamation from our director in the control room.
In a vote.
It's true, yes. Anyway, more details in a moment.
Then this wonderful, heroic gay couple who have been devoted to helping the homeless have died in New York City within a week of one another.
Tragic. Turkey, the country where they're holding that world leaders meeting, and, you know, Trump is bragging about how close he is to Erdogan. Turkey refused a gay cruise ship from docking there, even though others have done so for years. But this was the moment to shut down an Atlantis cruise.
And yes, there were LGBTQ people at the wedding of Taylor and Travis.
Yes, I've been taking notes. I have a list. I didn't get to go through the entire 1,000-person guest list, but from what I've seen, I've compiled a list of about a dozen. All right, so... you know, Trump, you'd think that he would, he's had court decisions against him, he's had the American people against him, but he just is the proverbial dog with a bone. He cannot give up anything. I mean, he's still talking about Greenland this week, and he wants to destroy everyone's way of life in this country. Every norm, everything, and certainly going after trans people is at the heart of it. But his strategy and his attitudes, but he really, everything he does is negative for the existence of everybody in this country.
Well, in this country and around the world. I mean, the estimates are that 500,000 people at least have already died because of the cuts in U.S. aid to developing countries. 500 that's a mass murderer.
Yes.
That's Pol Pot level stuff.
Exactly. And again, with no consequences.
None.
And trying to maintain power so that he won't eventually face any consequences to this. But it's hard for me to imagine that we're ever going to succeed in convicting him of anything or sending him to jail. He got the Supreme Court to declare him immune for everything he's done as president. All right, I have my usual list of stories, and I've annotated them this week in the realm of bad and good from Trump. So the bad outweigh the good by about 8 to 1. So I'm just going to whip through some of these, and we can discuss as we go along. Yes, ICE arrests are surging, and the Prairie Land arrests from the people who were demonstrating against ICE, protesting, peaceful protests, but they rounded up a lot of them. They've convicted them. They're sending them all to prison. And the last one has just been given a sentence of 6 years in prison, was not at the protest,
Right.
but convicted of material support. Yeah. And they've fired hundreds of intelligence officers because they don't want to defend this country. They want people to come in like the Patriot Front. And in fact, let's look at those Patriot Front pictures. There's one here that you've probably seen everywhere that's become the iconic picture of the Patriot Front members on the metro in D.C., and this poor woman sitting there with all these Patriot Front members around her. Now, look at those masks. They're masked. And they look so much like Ku Klux Klan members with those white masks that might as well be hoods.
Yeah.
And there's this guy. I had just seen this picture. Also, there are a ton of pictures of hundreds of Patriot Front members marching through town, going down to the subway, surrounding people who are just sitting there in terror.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if they go on the subway like that, they're going to be surrounding black people because D.C. is a black town.
Yes,
the people that use the subway are black and brown people in D.C. And this is also in light of the continued presence of the National Guard, chiefly in black and brown residential neighborhoods in D.C. And, Trump keeps touting, the lowest crime rate in D.C. ever, blah, blah, blah. But he's literally sending National Guard troops who are coming in from Minnesota or South Dakota or wherever and just sort of instituting martial law in black and brown neighborhoods and attacking people sitting in their yards.
Well, Stephen Miller and his henchmen continue to talk about the need for America to become a Christian white society, that's what it was set up to be, that anyone else should be thrown out of the country. And they have not given up this approach, and they say it quite blatantly. And this is the perfect example of the intimidation they are wreaking havoc on the population. And I just, I despair at the people who are put in that situation with those Patriot Front people around them.
And the frightening part is it's so normalized. Like,
the Republican senators, they have free speech rights, too.
Yeah. But the Patriot Front, but everything it's doing, the fact that Stephen Miller, who is a key advisor to the President of the United States, saying the most racist, horrifically racist, neo-Nazi, he's always been called a Nazi for good reason, things, and we have a media environment that has just sort of allowed it to be normalized. They're not, they'd rather talk about, the latest entertainment news or the soccer or the Knicks, which, I mean, the Knicks should be talked about, don't get me wrong.
That's fine.
But, there's a frightening white supremacist takeover of our government that in broad daylight, in plain sight, not obfuscated, not hidden away,
not being called out.
No.
I'm old. I remember the Vietnam War. I remember the Civil Rights Movement and the blaring headlines about all of this, and really people up in arms and upset in the entire country demonstrating or complaining about all of this here. everybody is just, it's like we're all on Xanax or something. It's just, well, that's not entirely true because, of course, one of our headlines also was that people are fighting back. But let me run through a little more of this. We have the failed state fair, the failed reflecting pool, the failed Kennedy Center, the failure at Mount Rushmore, the fact that he's stealing money from all the parks, the national parks, to put on his failed 4th of July nonsense. He hires the producer of the January 6th rally to set up the failed state fair and July 4th mess. He's still pushing the Save America Act with the anti-trans things because it mandates the exclusion of trans girls from female sports. The Supreme Court just said you can make rules. His version says you have to, and you have to do that across the board. So he's still after that. It just, the list goes on and on. Here's one of my favorites. Sean Davis from The Federalist, a publisher, a writer for the Federalist, said, we should either refuse female immigrants from coming into the country or sterilize them.
And the interesting thing is the way that he phrased it, though, it wasn't immigrants. He said visitors. Because that's the whole thing, right? It was citizenship. It was anti-baby tourism, right? And so it can't just be people who are immigrating here because they want to, because if you happen to be pregnant while you're vacationing here and you give birth a little earlier than you planned, then your child is technically an American citizen, even if you have no intention of living here or anything.
Which, of course, is the exact story of the American soccer player who Trump then went to bat for by calling the head of FIFA.
Right.
But even though everyone has noticed this, and it is all over the news, no one has had the guts to say to Trump directly, wait a minute, I thought you hated birthright citizenship, and yet this guy is someone you felt was mistreated and you wanted to elevate. What's his answer to that?
Yeah, well, the real thing he's going to have to answer for is the fact that he keeps cursing American hopeful teams. Like, I mean, the Knicks did end up winning, but so the one game in that in those finals that Trump attended is the one game the Knicks lost.
Exactly.
Then the second after he intervenes on behalf of this American soccer player, they lose and they're out of the competition.
Yes.
So, people should just try to not ask any favors for Trump, not ask him.
Well, he's supposed to go to the final at the World Cup, but since the U.S. will not be playing, I don't know which team he will curse. Maybe the stadium will have problems.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to say that since we're about to lose a skyscraper here on 42nd Street.
That was going to be converted into
apartments. Well, I think it still can be, but do they have to knock down the whole thing to rescue it? I don't know. Anyway, so he also is, of course, putting his signature on the $100 bill, the first president to feel he needs to have his signature on the currency. Absolutely shameful. He rails against trans people taking advantage, but all his rich friends take advantage on a daily basis, and that's not a problem. So the hypocrisy of that is disturbing. And the Coast Guard forced the Clearwater sloop out of the tall ships parade here in New York on the 4th of July because they put up a banner that said,
It was about the environment, right? It was
indigenous rights and climate justice or something. Yeah. And that was too much, and so they took it out of the parade. HUD has been ordered to remove sexual orientation and gender identity non-discrimination from its rules and just mention sex. Now, of course, we'll go right back to court and say, but sex includes sexual orientation and gender identity. But
well, I think that the reason they did it, though, is a part of the recent trans ruling was that about trans sports was that Title IX, when Title IX was written, sex only meant male, female, didn't mean anything else.
This drives me crazy.
Which is ridiculous.
I keep saying you want to be a constitutional originalist. How can you make a decision about airplanes?
Yeah. Exactly that.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. Well, I want to nominate a hero for the week in the midst of this. Air Force Major Watson, who stood on the steps of the Capitol there in uniform with his sign, "Impeach, Convict, Remove." What a guy. What a great thing to do. But the Trump administration, of course, didn't like it, and so here's what happened to Major Watson. He was arrested. His message to the population of the United States is speak up peacefully every day until we get rid of these creeps. Now, what bothers me about this is here we have the 6 people, the senators and veterans who did that video saying the military should not obey illegal
unlawful orders, right?
Yes, exactly. And so this guy gets up and does this, and you would expect people to cheer. Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. I have a habit of watching MS Now a lot, and there are a lot of progressive or liberal military types, ex-military or whatever. And there's one, General Hertling, who I have enjoyed listening to. He gets on there after this and says, how dare this guy do this? This is treasonous. You're not supposed to do things like this in uniform. You shouldn't speak like this. And I think, what the?
Yeah.
What do you want? Do you want people to speak up and object to illegal actions by the president, or don't you?
Well, it's this whole thing of people that are still stuck in people on the left who are still or in the center who are still stuck on this protocol and doing what's expected given your position or your office, when the other side is just, we don't care about any of that. We're going to do whatever we want to do. We're going to shred the Constitution. We're going to ignore the Bill of Rights. We're going to just, follow everything that the Heritage Foundation said in Project 2025, regardless of how unconstitutional it is. And we're trying to fight that with too many people who are in charge of democratic politics, or who are consultants or pundits or what have you, that are well connected, that get the airwaves, that are still sticking to the old paradigm, and it doesn't work. It's asymmetrical warfare.
And look, I want the entire military to resign and demonstrate. I do. Again, I'm old enough to remember all the active duty and veteran military throwing their medals at the White House, over the White House fence in the Vietnam War. I want to see more stuff like that. I want to see people objecting and demonstrating vociferously, or as Major Watson says, speaking up peacefully every single day. There has to be a bigger fight back. So, but he was, and I thought he did a fantastic job of maintaining his dignity and speaking out forcefully and honestly about that. I am happy to see that that Congress has mandated the funds to restore the Press 3 on the suicide hotline.
Yes.
Which takes you to someone who will talk to you as an LGBTQ counselor. But, half those calls used to be taken by the Trevor Project, and then they got defunded, and now they can't get back on this because if you're not actively an organization on the line, on the hotline, you can't be restored. So, and
what they are probably going to do is give it to, have those calls transferred to some right-wing Christian reparative therapy, Pray the Gay Away organization. They're going to give them in charge of that, and that's going to mess these kids up even more.
Yeah, because they're calling because they're in distress. And so you're right. The right-wing interpretation of that is, well, if you would...
stop being gay.
Yeah. Then
stop being trans.
Your life would be lovely. Good news, a court in California rejected the Fed's demands for the medical records of trans kids who were at Stanford Hospital. So that's one piece of good news. And another court forbade the United States Postal Service from following through on Trump's orders to not send mail-in ballots to people. Now, Trump is still fighting that in various ways.
Well, and apparently Louis DeJoy,
Postmaster
General, has said that he has refused to say that he's not going to hold those ballots. He's saying, we will follow the laws or the directives from the federal government, whatever they are, or something. He's being very squirrely about it.
I smile because I know he's been through the ringer several times. It's hard to imagine people. Now that I've made this plea for people to stand up to Trump, I also wonder whether they will have the guts to do so. But progressive candidates are winning.
Yes.
You're involved in progressive politics with progressive candidates.
I know a few. I've endorsed a few, but I normally, my whole thing is staying in the streets and not in the
much more fun.
And also then you're not beholden to any of them. You're not
exactly.
You can hold them. You can hold them all to account.
But even as a street activist, do you have a sense that we actually can make progress and win some of these races, or are we going to get knocked on our rear ends when we come to the general election?
I think that that these progressive candidates who have won their various primaries, I think that they're going to win the general. I think that we're kind of in the same place that we were in 2016, and the people are telling us that. And the problem is
Women's March.
Well, that was 2020. Oh no, that was 2017. But I'm talking about in the leading up to the 2016 election.
We lost that election.
Well, I know, but the reason that we lost that election is because the Democratic Party wasn't listening to the people.
And we had a TV star who had not fully revealed himself. But my point is that then once people got over their shock, they did the Women's March at the beginning of 2017, right at his inauguration.
Yes.
And then in 2018, we won the midterms.
We won the midterms, exactly. And I think that the whole point is whether or not the DNC respects these progressive candidates, because what we're seeing right now is some group of centrist Democrats are excoriating all of these Democratic Socialist candidates, all these progressive candidates. They're, either it's because of Israel or it's because of, they're just progressive policies or going back to
Medicare for all,
Medicare for all, or defund the police or whatever metric they want to use to go after them. They're going after them, and that was the mistake that we made in 2016 in the primary period because we didn't get Sanders.
When Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was elected, people lost their minds.
Yeah.
And they thought, oh, my God, this is the end of civilization. What are we going to do with this crazy woman? And she's turned out to be perfectly normal and reasonable and, progressive, but able to compromise. And we're talking about her as a presidential candidate now. Exactly. And Mamdani, I think, has also...
Oh, if he had been born in this country... He would definitely be in the running for president within the next 12 years.
Well, given the rate of change from the Trump administration, maybe we can do something about
Maybe we can
that.
do something.
Well,
true.
do you think he's doing a good job?
I think he's doing an amazing job. I think he's the best mayor that we've had. I think the entire time I've lived in the city. Maybe Dinkins. I love Dinkins. I had a warm. I had a soft, but he only served for one term, But I'm so impressed with him. The bar is low. Our mayors in this town have been very problematic.
But yes, I also, every once in a while there's a stumble, but I think he's doing remarkably. Especially, and maybe this is inappropriate of me, but I still think of him as quite young.
Yeah, 30. He's 34, 33.
Yeah, something in there.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it especially remarkable.
But I think that the whole thing with the Democratic Socialists and the progressive movement that folks aren't quite getting, and that the DNC folks aren't quite getting, is that the Democratic, what's happened in our politics over the course of the last 40, 50 years is the Republican Party has moved further and further to the right. And as it's done that, the centrists of the Democratic Party have kept moving to the right to find a new center.
They think they're going to capture the center more and count on the left.
Which all they've actually been doing is ceding ground. And what the DSA is doing is bringing the Democrats back to where they were in, say, the late 60s.
Right. All right, a couple more headlines here, and we can move on to other kinds of stuff. The Department of Defense is handing out erectile dysfunction pills to the tune of 100,000 to the military last year, 639,000 to veterans and dependents. But no gender-affirming care for trans families.
Which is basically for trans kids of active duty military who are seeking care.
But people point out that, wait a minute, isn't Viagra a gender-affirming care? Yes.
It absolutely is gender-affirming care.
Melania. I fully support the LGBTQIA community, but we must protect girls' sports. Make up your mind, Melania, and get educated. And the attack on the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History is just disgusting. And luckily, the people there are speaking up. But federal funding is so tied into all these institutions, whether they are strictly part of the administration or not, that Trump can go a long way by withdrawing or threatening to withdraw federal funds. And that is true here, too.
Well, as long as his toadies are in control of Congress. But speaking of the Smithsonian, I don't know whether you saw on July 4th, when these torrential storm was bearing down on the State Fair on the Capitol Mall, the multi-state fairs, and the the park rangers, I guess that control that.
Take cover,
take cover, and so all of these maggots had to take cover in the Smithsonian Museum for National African American History Museum for hours.
Oh my God.
Hours.
You think they looked at any of the exhibits?
I hope so. I hope so. Maybe they learned something. I hope so, but I kind of doubt it.
Well, we can hope. And you showed me this report that just was stunning by Outright International of how the GOP has spread anti-LGBTQ hate around the world. In 25 countries, anti-trans, anti-gay hate was the centerpiece of election campaigns in 2024. They use the same language, gender ideology, indoctrination, wokeism, and this is everywhere from Germany to Colombia to Macedonia, in the U.S., of course. Pakistan, Brazil, France, all over the world, the GOP and these religious fanatics are spreading this.
Well, it's this whole sort of Christian nationalist movement. Folks, here in the United States, we tend to be very, very closed off, and we just think of things like Christian nationalism as being about an American thing. But this Christian nationalism is all over Europe. It is pushing into areas of Africa. It's partnering with very strongly anti-gay Muslim leadership in some African countries to push, like in Niger, to push these very, very anti-queer platforms. There's this one woman, Sharon Slater, from Family Watch International, who is kind of the locus point of particularly the anti-gay stuff in Africa. She and her movement have been going from country to country to country.
Oh boy.
Pushing these African things. And the weird thing is, she's actually colonizing, but the argument that all these African countries are using is that they're rejecting colonization, when it was colonization that brought the anti-gay attitudes into these African countries to begin with.
Absolutely.
With the British and French, et cetera,
Absolutely.
colonizers. Madness.
By the way, I forgot to mention your podcast. You do a podcast.
I do a podcast with two of my friends that I met from my work in Rise and Resist. It's called Girl Stop, GURL, stop. So check it out. It's on all the podcast platforms.
That. And we did have Brandy Carlisle singing the America the Beautiful at the Statue of Liberty on the day before the 4th of July.
That's lovely.
She could go around to some of these countries.
Yeah.
And try to tell
Teach
a
them
different
something.
story. Yeah. All right. We got to whip through other stuff. Interesting report by the Williams Institute. Employees they surveyed were more concerned that their employers speak out on LGBTQ issues than donate money. They want that vocal support, which I thought was fascinating and important.
That is. Yeah, although money is important too.
Money is definitely important. Everything is important.
Especially as corporations have been pulling money out.
Yeah, but what they're saying is that they want their employers, these corporations, to speak up.
To speak up.
Costco has done great by sticking to very progressive values,
Sure.
but others have not. Last week I was railing about the New York Times, a new report that the New York Times had really screwed up trans coverage, and mostly since A.G. Sulzberger took over as publisher. So they covered the Supreme Court decision on trans girls in sports. Did not talk to a single trans person.
Of course not. Of course not. Well, after the trans girl in sports decision, a group of us held, a sort of emergency community speak out and presser in the Stonewall National Park. And there were like 2 television reporters that came with cameras. Yeah. And, there were 4 cisgender people there and 9 trans people there. And the reporter comes straight over to me. And I was like, why don't you talk to some trans people? Here are some. Let me introduce you. It's like there's this sort of weird kind of thing, but it's...
Please. I have done a lot of training of activists on how stupid the mainstream media are. We can do that another day. All right, let's take a little detour to Graham Plattner for a minute. How can you give any credence to a guy who says, no, that never happened. I didn't rape her. I didn't take off condoms in the middle of sex, when he was drunk. He was blackout drunk. How can he claim any credibility on any of that?
I mean, the second that someone says, I didn't know that was a Nazi tattoo on my chest, and
that's where they've lost you.
And the racist stuff that I typed out in chat rooms on the internet, I didn't really mean them. I was just drunk when I typed them. Yeah.
Drunk. Drunk is.
But the thing is, it was Maine, and so I completely understand the fact that even Maine Democrats went ahead and supported him through the primaries.
Let's not.
I'm not going to. I
love
say
Maine.
Maine is the least black state in the country.
Well, it's also a very democratic state. I don't understand why the news media insists on calling them Mainers when everyone else calls them maniacs. Anyway, I went to camp in Maine. So they're talking about who could replace him, and there seem to be like 3 top candidates, 1 man and 2 women. I heard one of the women be interviewed this week. She was very sharp, the Secretary of State of Maine. Oh. But I don't know enough about any of these people to know who was the most desirable. But there was another guy who hasn't been mentioned yet, but who was interested for a while, an out gay man. Where to go? Jordan Wood, thank you. There. Jordan Wood, who ran in a primary for Congress and lost, but is an admired local political type, and his name has come up a little, but I don't think he's at the top of the list, but it would be nice if he were.
It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, how this all shakes out, because the whole primary process, regardless of Plattner's just horrific personal behavior, was very much what we were talking about earlier, which is this sort of DSA progressive-oriented move within the Democratic Party and Democratic primary voters consistently voting for the person who's more progressive, more aligned with Bernie Sanders or DSA.
Maybe it's just the identification of being the old white woman, but I still like Janet Mills.
But Mainers didn't.
I know.
Or maniacs, however you want to call it. But the question
I've
is,
given up on her.
The whole process of choosing someone, if Plattner does drop out, the whole process of choosing someone to replace him on the November ballot may be in the hands of the DNC,
They
right?
only have 2 weeks to do it.
Yeah.
They're talking about debates. They're talking about voting. But with Plattner being such a total a-hole, which is about as far as I can go on this show, I think, he won't get out of the way, and they can't start the process officially. I'm sure they're doing a lot of talking all day long about how to do this, but really it's just an impossibly short period of time. So I think they want to be transparent and fair, but please, I retract that statement. But they're really under this.
They're under gun.
Deadline.
He has to step out by the 11th.
Well,
right? That's the deadline.
I hope he has stepped away by the time you see this show.
Let's hope.
Because this is just unconscionable.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just making himself more loathsome every day by not stepping away.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of loathsome, there is the Attorney General of Florida, who demanded that the North American Irish Dance Competition exclude a 14-year-old trans teen from competing. And the teen is not in this picture. Those are just generic dancers. But that is the Florida Attorney General. And as the screen says, Florida's Attorney General threatened to sue over one transgender dancer. The entire Irish dancing world refused to hand her over.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Shocking and wonderful.
Amazing, yeah.
Really, really great. Well, as long as we're in that mode, we should talk about how the Daughters of the American Revolution. My grandmother was a member.
I bet she was.
Not me. From Windsor, Connecticut. Where we have a connection. But some members of the DAR put forth a proposal to ban trans members of the DAR. Who knew there were trans members of the DAR, but evidently there are.
Sure.
And the administration said no, and took a vote and rejected that proposal, and they are affirming and welcoming their trans members of the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Once they became very publicly proud of their black membership, it was, this is the natural progression. It's like when when you reject racism, it becomes that much easier to reject homophobia, to reject anti-trans transphobia. It's
once you get to know people as people,
that's it.
Then there you are. All right. In Oregon, here's another hero story. Nikki Hiltz, who we've talked about before, who is a non-binary track star, uses they, them pronouns. So they were competing in a very famous meet, the Prefontaine annual meet named after Steve Prefontaine, who died young and was a great athlete. Nikki Hiltz is non-binary and trans, but does not take any hormones or anything that is that would call their gender into question for competitions like this, and wins competitions, and won this one, won the women's mile at the Prefontaine Classic, beating a Kenyan favorite. They came in 7th in the 1,500 meters at the Paris Olympic Games in 2024. Will continue to compete, I think, very successfully, but is heroic in describing themselves as non-binary and trans, but not doing anything physically that would prevent
them from running, because it's so just so that I understand, they were assigned Female at birth.
Yes.
And
so
then,
they
and
compete
they're
in the women's division.
Okay.
And are undoubtedly really messing with the minds of the MAGA crowd.
Well, after the Supreme Court decision, my one of the things I said in that presser was, I want every trans boy out there, whether you're an athlete or not, to try out for the girls' team.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, just like
and go into the girls' restrooms too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they want you to do your bio
and especially at the college level.
Sure.
After.
Well, there was this whole thing with this trans boy in Texas years ago who was a wrestler, and they made him wrestle with the girls on the grounds that he was assigned female at birth, and they wouldn't accept him in the boys' division. And he just wiped out all the girls, and it was just tragic, and he didn't want to be doing that.
Right.
But that was his only choice, and it wasn't good for the girls, and it wasn't good for him, and it wasn't good for anybody. And they made a lovely little documentary about it, too. All right. In Puerto Rico, they arrested Robinson de la Cruz, who has threatened mass killings of LGBTQ people. He wants to do another Pulse massacre. He admires that killer.
And it was like messages online and
then he found he had a lot of child porn on his
Of course, because that always follows.
And in Philadelphia, there's an urgent manhunt for Jalen Melcher, who over several weeks in May and June shot up 3 gay men, is targeting them. He's so far killed 2 and injured 1. And if you're in that area, find out about that and watch out. New Jersey has passed protections for trans care, abortion, IVF, etc.
That's amazing.
The governor, we told you that Governor Pritzker in Illinois had signed 3 pro-trans laws. One of them we're reading about. It took testosterone off a list of monitored medications, so that trans people would not be targeted.
And it was sort of that the state was monitoring the doling out of those medications.
They were on a government
database for the state, and then this federal government would have been able to seize those records if they continued to keep them on.
Right. In Northfield, Minnesota, the Pride operation there has been continually attacked by local haters, so they're fighting back. There are a couple of women with some lovely
Well, this was a really lovely story, because what they did was, these were basically allies. These were not necessarily LGBTQ people. These were the plus people. And they sort of surrounded, wherever these hate mongers went, they would gather around them, and they would hold up signs with one message to the people celebrating Pride on the front, and another message sort of with a Bible verse about, like, don't hate and things like that, facing the haters.
Sweet.
And they would sing. And they would follow them around, and they would sing these, like, lovely, uplifting songs. And it reminded me of Matthew Shepard's funeral.
I was just going to say the angels and the wings.
Yeah. So I thought that was really
well,
powerful.
I think that's a great way. And in Topeka, Kansas, when they would go after
Westboro Baptist Church. Yes,
and they would do the same kind of thing there. And that kind of peaceful confrontation to shame the haters and not let them intimidate people is a great strategy.
Upstage them and make them look silly.
Yeah. Ken Paxton's making himself look silly in Texas. What's the latest? Oh, he voted in 6 elections from the wrong residence. He also has changed his mind on IVF. He used to say he was proudly pro-IVF, but now he's decided that's abortion when you get rid of the extra embryos.
He needs to get some money from someone.
Well, he needs to shore up the right-wing support. In Kansas, there was a trans woman who followed the law when they changed the law and said, you cannot be trans. You have to declare yourself by your birth-assigned gender. So she changed her driver's license to male. And then she got stopped, and they said, what's with this male on your driver's license? You look like a woman. Yeah. And she said, I'm just following your stupid law.
Exactly.
And then they charged her for not showing up in court, even though they had, let her go. And
well, yeah, it was the cop let her go with a warning.
Yep.
Didn't give her a ticket.
Yeah.
So as far as she know, leaving the thing, she didn't have any court appearance. Then she received.
lo and behold.
She gets something in the mail
Yep.
saying that if she does not show up for this court hearing, she's going to suffer repercussions. So I think she did show up.
And they have now dropped
then there
the
was,
charges.
but there was no there,
Yeah.
and nothing happened. But the whole issue, though, is that these kinds of laws are stupid, and they're going to result in stupid things. We've already seen so many cisgender women getting attacked in women's rooms.
Absolutely.
By men storming into women's rooms.
Yep.
Because
Someone has reported them.
Yes, because someone's reported them, or because just they take a look at this woman and she's too butch looking
Yep.
for their mind to conceive that she's a woman, and then this man who he's trying to protect, it makes no sense.
It's the law of unintended consequences, but it's really sad and awful.
And it particularly hits, that sort of behavior particularly hits black women whose femininity has been routinely attacked forever. And
right.
so
Here's a story I like. So we have said that the Federal Trade Commission was going after WPATH, the trans medical organization.
Yes.
And so they have brought suit against WPATH, and they did it in this, this little northern Texas district
where they do everything.
Yes, because there are one or two judges there who will do everything right wing. And WPATH said, no, that's inappropriate. We want to have this adjudicated in Washington, where the FTC is, where we are, whatever. And the FTC objected. The judge in Texas, Reed O'Connor, who is a notorious right-wing judge, sided with WPATH and said, I shouldn't be looking at this case. It should be assigned to a judge in D.C. I am denying the FTC's request for me to hear this case.
Well, but that was after, though, he had a private conversation with the judge the WPATH had reached out to. So something... Boasberg.
The guy who said, turn back the planes.
Yes. And so, I would love to have been a fly on the wall or in the Zoom room.
Well,
whatever conversation went on between those two judges.
Yes, but it made me think that was a little bit
gives you
of
some
progress.
hope about the federal courts.
Some creepy guy in Brooklyn, 37 years old, has been charged with assaulting a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah, with his belt. Like slapping his kid with a belt, calling homophobic slurs.
Assault, menacing, hate crime. Delaware, there's an update on a story we did last week. We said that they had failed to pass a constitutional amendment protecting same-sex marriage and interracial marriage. Well, they went back for a second try at that in the legislature, and they did pass
And they got it through.
So they have to pass it twice. It's a constitutional amendment, but it is expected to progress. So that ends up being good news in Delaware. But in Missouri, the governor says no hormones or surgery for trans inmates. Let them all detransition on their own. Whatever.
Which has already been ruled in federal courts. That denying medication to trans inmates is like cruel and unusual punishment. As torture is unconstitutional, and so this is again they're flouting something that is already established federal law, so that they can push it up through the court system, so that it goes to the Supreme Court. So then these 6 horrific people end up voting another thing away.
Well, we're going to be torturing our audience because we only have 6 minutes left. In Alabama, the former mayor, Tallahassee, Florida, and Florida gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum, who got in trouble, has now been arrested again for possession of drugs. In Seattle, Washington, there's a trans organization there, Traction, which has moved 1,500 trans people to Seattle out of bad states, but they're getting overwhelmed. If you want to help them, look into that. That's just since the 2024 election. In New York, we mourn the deaths of Jason Connor and Jeffrey Newman, a married couple who were just amazing heroes working with homeless people. And in fact, Jason on the left there was homeless, and they met when Jeffrey was out helping homeless people on the streets. They've worked together for years. Jason died, and a couple of days, cardiac arrest.
Yes.
And a few days later, Jeffrey died, and we're not sure of why Jeffrey died. He'd been living with HIV for a long time. They had just celebrated their 22nd anniversary. They'd volunteered at New Alternatives, and they created backpacks for the street, where they gave, loaded backpacks to homeless people on the street. They were just fantastic.
Yeah, it's just it's so sad, but that dependency that from long-term relationships, it's just really sad that.
Both.
Yeah, both of them. And
well, we don't know the full story.
We don't know the story.
In Vail, Colorado, we lost Dale Savage at 62 of a stroke. He became a pansexual adult film star at 50. Did it for 10 years and then retired to Vail, which is a lovely place.
I didn't know him before I read this story, but I did do a little research into his work.
Did you?
It was both extensive and expansive.
In Baltimore, Maryland, trans woman Asia Williams, 38 years old, shot dead in a convenience store, described by her aunt as a bright light in our lives, full of kindness and love, dedicated retail manager and driver for DoorDash to support her family. Celebration of life this weekend on the 11th, and there is a fund being created. These stories have changed over the years that we've been doing this. It used to be people who were anonymous and living on the streets and got murdered, and now they're people who have lives in the community and are respected and loved in the community, and they're still getting shot and killed.
Well, and it's a city in cities and gun violence, and there doesn't seem to be any indication that her death had anything whatsoever to do with her trans.
Who knows?
Transness. It seems like she was in this convenience store. Somebody else was shot in there as well.
Yes.
They're looking for the
Yes,
shooter.
it could have been
just
robbery or whatever.
robbery, what have you.
Nonetheless, she's
But what's important, though, is that she wasn't misgendered.
Right.
She was recognized for who she was. Like the reports about her death, included her transness, and I think that's.
All right. Down to less than 2 minutes. The country of Turkey rejected a gay cruise ship that wanted to dock there. And what's shocking to me is Patty Lupone was on that boat, and they wouldn't let it dock. What's wrong with them?
Silliness.
As you said, in Niger, there's a witch hunt for gay people since they have criminalized homosexuality. They've arrested more than 40 people. And in Senegal, they have banned same-sex marriage. They're trying to eradicate all LGBTQ people. Watch out where you travel.
You got to get in your favorite wedding.
Yes. Well, actually not. But I did go through the guest list of the Taylor and Travis wedding looking for gay people who attended. And I came across this lovely picture of Abby Wambach and Glennon Doyle, wedding guests. Also Graham Norton, Gerard Carmichael was there, Lucy Dacus, Bowen Yang, Ronan Farrow, Ice Spice, Robin Roberts, Maren Morris, Niecy Nash Betts, and her wife Jessica. But Travis took his bachelor party to a Dave Chappelle show, and the lovely Dave Chappelle said, "It's the only bachelor party I've seen that was whoreless." What a classy guy, Dave Chappelle.
But also on the invitation list at Taylor and Travis's wedding was Stephen J. Demetrio, who's the chair of Amentum, which is just got a $500 million contract with the federal government to build concentration camps for immigrants snatched up by ICE.
That's not good, even though Travis and Taylor gave $26 million to good charities.
To various charities.
All right, that's it. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Pleasure. All right, see you next week with Chris Cooper.